everyone, so today I thought I'd do a video on dealing with difficult people and difficult relationships. So I think we all have to deal with people that sometimes we find difficult, and sometimes these people we can love to bits, and sometimes these people we cannot like very much at all, because it can be anything from a partner to a child to just anyone in the family, in-laws. It can be friends, colleagues and stuff. I feel even just a neighbour, we all have people that we kind of struggle with and kind of have difficult relationships with, and you can't always avoid those people, and sometimes you don't want to because they're people that you love to bits and you want them in your life, but for whatever reason you find yourself getting frustrated with each other and clashing with each other, and it just can be quite a difficult relationship. And the reason I want to do this video is because it's easy to feel good when everything's going really well and everything's really harmonious, but when you're kind of in a position where aren't great and you feel like somebody's being rude to you, or they don't appreciate you, or you just feel frustrated and you're like, why are they doing this? Then it's sometimes really difficult to kind of feel good and to feel in a good frame of mind. I think especially with parenting or somebody you love, when you love your kids to bits and sometimes you're really struggling, I think for me personally, I find motherhood can be really hard, and I think if you can learn to deal and manage those relationships, you just kind of set yourself up for a winning streak. So I think the first thing to remember, however you're feeling, is absolutely okay. I think the worst thing we can do is when we're struggling and something's getting to us is to beat ourselves up, because you are going to sometimes not feel appreciated, taken for granted, think somebody was really rude to you, because that's people, and sometimes people are just assholes and they're going to piss you off, and that's sometimes going to put you in a bad mood. And I'm not even going to lie to you and say that nobody's ever going to piss you off, because sometimes somebody is going to piss you off, and I think it's what we do when that happens that really matters, and how we manage that. So if you struggle with somebody, don't give yourself a hard time over it, because it happens. It happens to the best of us. We all let people get under our skin sometimes, so I think just kind of forgive yourself, have some compassion with yourself. I say this in a lot of my videos, but be a friend to yourself. I think that's the first step. Now the next advice depends on who the person is. So there's two kind of people we have to deal with. There's those we have to deal with that we love to bits and we want in our lives, and then there's also the people who has to be in our lives, maybe because we work with them or whatever, that if given a choice they wouldn't be in our lives. But the two people that have to be in your life, whether because you want them in your life because you love them, or because of circumstances they have to be in your life, then the way I think you deal with that is different depending on whether you love the person or you don't love the person. One thing that always remains the same is how you show up and your actions. So no matter whether you're dealing with somebody you love to bits or you really don't like, I think it's always important to kind of show up with a strong back but heart open. And that kind of same concept came from a book called Braving the Wilderness. It was in one of my favourites videos, so if this is something you're struggling to do, I would recommend reading that book. Basically, by having kind of a strong back, heart open, I can't remember if that was the exact phrase, but it was basically along those lines. Basically means make sure you kind of stick up for yourself and defend yourself, but also be completely loving. Even if somebody's really rude, really disrespectful, really so frigging ungrateful, as annoying as that is and as hard as that is, keep your side of the street clean by not kind of stooping to that level, because when you kind of stoop to that level, you're always going to go away and feel shit. But if you stick up for yourself and defend yourself but keep it clean, by not getting personal, by not getting nasty, but kind of saying, you know what, that's not right, I don't agree with that, but keep it really loving and clean and kind. I think in a situation when something happens that it's really pissed you off, it's kind of pausing for a moment and in your head kind of say, how can I show up and be love? And that means sticking up for yourself and staying true to yourself, but kind of thinking, how can I be kind even though they haven't shown me any kindness? The thing is, you can't triumph in a negative situation with more negativity. A more kind of anger and fear, nothing ever kind of gets resolved. So if you start being kind of bitchy or nasty or argumentative or get personal back, there's going to be no solutions come from that. It doesn't mean you're a mug, it doesn't mean you stand there and take it, it just means even when somebody's not being kind to you, just don't stoop to their level. And this one takes practice, so if you don't get it right, like, don't beat yourself up about it, because you're not always going to get it right. Like, I'm not always graceful. In fact, quite a lot I have to work really hard on being graceful. Like, it's a practice, and I'm not going to pretend I'm some angel at it, because I'm not. And this is why I'm making this video, because I make videos on the stuff that I've either just recently learned or I'm learning at the time. But there's been times when I just feel like somebody's really been rude to me, really disrespected me, and what I've kind of learned is if I'm rude back and I disrespect them back, that not only do I feel shit about myself, because I've done the same thing as what I don't agree with is nice, because it didn't feel nice when it was done to me, but it makes the relationship more volatile, more difficult, nothing gets resolved, nothing beautiful comes out of it. Never kind of put yourself in a position where you think you could look back and kind of feel cringed about your behaviour. Like, and I think at times you probably will, and I hope you don't, but I think because we all make mistakes, and I know there's certain times where I could look back on a situation and think, fuck, I did not handle that well at all, I was not very graceful, but I'm really learning to do that a lot less and to kind of minimise that, and I'm really quite proud of myself recently, because I've had times where I feel like people haven't been kind to me and have been rude and haven't really appreciated me, and it would be so easy for me to be rude back and to get really personal back, and I haven't, and I'm really proud of myself for that, and it feels really good. So, and I always thought like sticking up for yourself was kind of being rude back, being personal, having the last word, and I've realised that isn't it. What feels really good is when you stick up for yourself and you say, I don't agree, I'm not putting up with that, but when you don't get personal, when you do it with grace, when you do it lovingly, when you kind of just fully show up and stick up for yourself, and you don't put up with that shit, but you don't scoop to that level of being personal. The next thing is, if it's somebody you really, really love and you're frustrated and you're struggling with that relationship because you're like, why are they being like this? And you can't understand it, and there's just like a lot of tension. I think first of all, it's remembering to, you know, love them where they're at right now, you know, whether that's they're being argumentative, they're being really ungrateful, they don't appreciate anything, whatever it is, just love them where they are now, because ultimately people are always doing their best, even when it feels like they're taking the piss. Like, happy, really contented, like loving people don't take the piss, and they appreciate everything, so they're obviously feeling a certain way, and it's important that you don't try and fix that. That doesn't mean you don't be there for them, doesn't mean you don't support them or anything like that. You can totally support them, you can totally be there for them, but when you kind of like try and like fix the day and kind of save things and make things better, and you know want to make them feel better, like you take away their kind of power to sort it out themselves. The other thing you need to think about, if you're sort of struggling with a relationship, and this is a relationship with somebody you care about, because if it's somebody you don't care about, just don't give it this kind of energy. But if there's a relationship you're struggling with where you don't feel appreciated, where you feel taken advantage of, you just feel really like frustrated and like they're just not treating you with the respect that you need and deserve. Now, we all should be respected. Everybody should treat each other with respect and not be rude. Like, you absolutely deserve that, that goes without saying. But if you need somebody to really appreciate you and to really respect you and to kind of show that, that is an issue with you, and you have to work on that yourself. Because yes, as I've said, they should appreciate you, they should respect you, but if somebody doesn't, that's an issue with them. So if I'm in a good mood and I'm in the car and I let somebody out and they don't thank me, if I'm in a really good mood, I'm like, whew, they must be having a bad day. If I'm not in the best mood, I'll be like, jerk. But the thing is, like, that person could be really stressed, they could be in a rush. Like, you know, if somebody kind of like lets me out and I'm in a really like, you know, I'm feeling good, or just like my normal self, I'll be like, oh, thank you, and I really appreciate it. But if I'm really stressed, I might nip out and not notice and be like, oh, I need to get somewhere. And then afterwards I'll think about it, like, oh gosh, I didn't thank that person. And it's because I'm not in a really good place. Now, if that person in the car goes, oh, they're fucking rude, blah, 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 like, yeah, I would have been rude. but it wasn't done on purpose. And I think that's the thing to remember. Like, people are either not doing it on purpose, or if somebody is purposely being rude, disrespectful, anything like that, they're clearly not in a good place, because people who are in a good place, who are really happy, just don't do that. They will respect you, they will appreciate you, so it's really important to kind of let that go and to not hang on to that. You have to remember, people do the best that they know how to, and people won't always get it right. It doesn't mean you justify their actions when they're rude or they're disrespectful or anything like that, but it does mean you choose to be loving when they're not. And I'm pretty sure I've already said this a few times, but just keep your side of the street clean. Just make sure that you're always loving and you're always kind, and when you're not and you get it wrong, apologise, say you're sorry. Like, this drives me insane, the amount of people who can't say they're sorry, and you are going to need to say sorry sometimes, because sometimes you will be wrong. And I know women always, there's this joke that, you know, women are always right, and I'll be honest, I think women are right a lot more than men. I'm obviously biased, but I also know I'm not always right, and sometimes I get it wrong, and sometimes I really effing mess up. But you know what I do when I realise? I say I'm sorry. The amount of times, like, people will have an argument, and halfway through the argument they'll realise they're wrong, but they're like, I've gone too far with this, shit, and they'll keep going with it. And it, like, ruins relationships. Like, friendships get broken because people can't say they're sorry, they can't admit when they're wrong. Nobody ever died from saying sorry. And really strong, powerful people who know their own worth can say they're sorry. If you can't say sorry, then a lot of your relationships are doomed. If you mess up, say you're fucking sorry and mean it. But never say sorry if you don't mean it. If you're really angry and you're annoyed and you think your behaviour was justified, don't do a fake sorry, because that doesn't resolve anything. But if you know you've messed up, if you know you've got something wrong, say sorry. I don't care if this is somebody younger than you. Like, I will apologise to my kids when I get it wrong. I think it's important they see that, because self-respecting people can apologise. And it's important for them to see that. It's important for people to know that there's no shame in getting things wrong and apologising. We seem to have this kind of epidemic where, like, admitting you're wrong, apologising is a bad thing. And it's really not, because you're going to be wrong at times. Nobody's right all the time, and anybody who thinks they're right all the time, God help that person. Nobody's right all the time. Remember, people are doing the best with what they know, and to just show up and be loving. Because people aren't born rude. They aren't born aggressive. They aren't born with tempers. They aren't born being ungrateful. So to not justify it, but also know they're doing their best, and to just make sure you show up and be loving, because you can't fight anything with more kind of resistance, more fighting. The only way anything beautiful can be resolved is if you show up with kindness and love. Show people how it's done, and when you're not feeling very graceful, walk away, take a breather. Now, there's that saying, be the change you want to see in the world. It's so true. And if you're ever dealing with someone or a relationship that doesn't make you feel good, evaluate, one, if they need to be in your life, and two, if they do need to be in your life and you want them in your life, really up the self-love and the self-care for yourself. Because I've came to realise, like, self-care isn't this, like, loosey-goosey word that just gets thrown about. I mean, obviously it does, but I've learned the more you love yourself, like, it pretty much fixes everything, because what you give out comes back to you. And if you give out kind of loving, positive energy, I can guarantee you that comes back. So if you're ever really struggling in a situation, really work on your own self-love, because it fixes so many things that you wouldn't even believe it could fix. It really does. Like, miracles come from self-love. I hope that was helpful. I'll see you soon in a new video. Bye!